So thank you so much. Today we are privileged to have an interview with Barack Muluka, one person that I look up to so much. But anyways, Barack, habari ya leo?
Poa. Mambo?
Poa sana, nashukuru. Leo asante kwa kutukaribisha nyumbani.
Karibuni sana. Nakaribishwa kila siku.
Tena na tena.
Hapa mimi na hawa ndege wangu tunawakaribisha.
Asante sana. We really appreciate.
Asante.
I mean, let's just go direct to the point. We've had a lot of issues happening in the country in matters politics, and it's not the very first time I'm interviewing you. I've interviewed you a number of times about politics in the country. And today I also want to learn more from you. I always call you a prophet at some point because
really?
we talked about a lot of issues and they have been coming. They have come to pass. Maybe we'll start from yesterday. We've had issues with Sifuna. Maybe what is your take on that? Because actually people are saying if at all Luya will produce a president, he might be one.
I don't want to look at Edwin Sifuna as a lawyer, because I am lawyer, and if I speak about him from that perspective, I'm likely to be misconstrued, misinterpreted as one who is casting the conversation in ethnic prisms. Be that as it may, Edwin is Luya and so am I, and neither of us chose to be there. We found ourselves within those spaces. Edwin is an astute leader. Listening to him increasingly, he comes across as an individual who has his heart in the right place. He has his mind and focus in the right place, thinking about people. He still embraces the ideals that his party, ODM, has previously stood for. And I choose my tenses very deliberately. There are values that ODM has previously stood for, represented, but which regrettably the apex leadership within the ODM has now surrendered to the whims of political convenience, the whims of expediency, and the whims of the good life within political spaces. So I think that both in terms of knowledge, in terms of philosophy, and beyond that, in terms of aspiration for the country, Edwin Sifuna would be counted among the people who can make good leaders at whatever level in the country.
Talking of Sifuna and, being the ODM Secretary General, he happened to attend a funeral in Siaya yesterday with the head of state and Raila Odinga. And people have been questioning because we have a lot of issues that are happening in the country, especially what transpired in Nakuru with the Butere girls. And there has been a loud silence between, among Raila Odinga and also William Ruto. The loud silence is killing Kenyans. What is your take on the whole issue of Butere girls?
First, to just go where you began, I saw a statement which was signed by the Secretary General, I believe, of ODM. It was a fairly lukewarm statement. And as I have said, ODM today is not the ODM that we knew. This is a party that has since reneged from its previous missionary and visionary agenda. It was a very lukewarm statement. And I think subsequent to that too, Mr. Odinga also made some very lukewarm statements. As for Mr. Ruto and the police, we have to ask whose police, when they brutalize, on whose behalf and at whose behest do they brutalize? The police are not a standalone entity. Forget about the thinking that they could be independent. It's not possible for the police in any state that is a police state such as ours to be independent. It is an entity that serves at the behest, at the beck and call of the powers of the day. So these are President William Ruto's police, and whatever it is they are doing, they do at his beck and call. It is interesting that we are talking about drama, that the students were in Nakuru for drama, and that a different kind of drama started taking place far from the drama that had taken them there. And in the end, the Butere girls actually are the winners in this drama. It doesn't matter who the invigilators are going to declare to be the winners. The whole country knows that the people who won, who carried the attention of the country to the correct place, are the Butere girls. It doesn't matter that they were not allowed to perform, for in failing to give them the opportunity to perform on the stage, they went on to perform for the rest of the country. They have created the awareness, the consciousness that drama is supposed to awake in us. Molière, a 17th century French dramatist, and who incidentally died on the stage, one of the most famous thespians of all times, probably in the same ranks only with someone like William Shakespeare, told us famously that theater gives us the opportunity to look at ourselves through artistic eyes, and not only to be able to correct ourselves, but even to laugh at ourselves sometimes, because all our follies, our weaknesses, our foibles are dramatized before us. And you can see that I'm the one being depicted by that character. And you can say, oh, so this is what I am like. It's always very good to have the opportunity to look at a mirror image of yourself. Even productions such as this that we are doing now, when I later on have a look at it, I say, oh, so this is how I was fidgeting. Oh, so this is how I lack composure when I'm seated in that hot seat. And I may promise myself to do a little better. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I will forget and go to my usual self. The mirror helps us to see the face and to see the mess on the face. And if you don't like the mess on the face, you don't break the mirror, you clean the face. If the face is ugly, you try to look for what is a little beautiful about that face and how you could amplify it. You do not throw away the mirror. And theater helps us as a mirror of society in a light way to see who we are. And so when we look at a work of fiction such as Echoes of War, as these girls, our girls, because the school is just next door here, Ebutere, that they were presenting that offering. It's a reflection of who we are. It may be fictive or fictional. It may be cast in different landscapes. But eventually, are we able to see images, reflections of ourselves through that narrative? That you are talking about a society which is under a totalitarian regime, a self-serving regime, a sultanate, a regime that is regal and monarchical. And there is a sense in which we expect monarchists to behave in certain excessive manners because they are there by dint of dynastic heredity. And so they believe that they have a right to be there all the time and to exercise power howsoever they think it befits them to exercise power. That is different from a republican entity such as ours, which is a constitutional democracy, that the people who are privileged to exercise power, to hold on the levers of state, the reins of authority, do so under the express will of the governed, and that they are instruments of a legal and constitutional nature that limit the exercise of that power. But sometimes a liberal democratic entity or an entity that flatters itself with the thought that it's liberal and democratic will derail, it will fall off the rails and begin behaving in a monarchical and regal manner. Hence, Cleophas Malala's very intelligently crafted play that brings before us a monarchical order that has gone haywire. And as we look at that monarchical order, we see in it reflections of our own so-called liberal democracy that has degenerated and gone into the dire straits of the misrule that we see in regal and monarchical dispensations. We see abuse of power, we see disregard of younger generations by older generations in a society such as ours here in Kenya, for example. Who can persuade you that the people in power today think about the youth of this country? When you get into the position of authority, which has been donated to you by the people, so that you could exercise them for the people, for the good of the country. And when you get there, your focus is on self-enrichment. As Barack, I have had the misfortune of being present to hear a cabinet secretary make pronouncements to the effect that after this appointment, I will never be a poor man again. That after this appointment, I will never be a poor man again. Because you're a cabinet secretary, supposed to be serving the people. You're thinking about how you'll never be a poor man again. And that is the philosophy of government in the play Echoes of War. That the people in office wake up every morning thinking about deals, thinking about excluding the youth, thinking about discriminating against women, that women come into the prison of consideration only as objects of pleasure and satiating of carnal appetite of dominant alpha male individuals in office, that your utility value does not go beyond being penalized by this dominant masculine individual. That Cleophas Malala and the girls in Butere are asking us, don't we need a conversation on these issues? Don't we need to correct these issues?
And talking about conversations, it is also one of the things that the youth in the country were calling out, especially during the Gen Z protests. And you talked about most of the youths have been left out by the government, the current regime. And that is one of the things that they were protesting about. Do you see another face of Gen Z going back on the streets anytime soon?
The Gen Z protest, contrary to the illusion that there was a Gen Z protest, the reality is that the Gen Z protest is still in motion. It may go into different guises. It may hibernate from space in which it has been violently brutalized. It may refigure and reconfigure itself, give itself a different visage, but it is still there. It's ongoing. President William Ruto and his friend Mr. Raila Odinga are sleeping in the middle of a revolution. The revolution is in process. Let me tell you, my friend Vayo, I have had the privilege of being a student of history for the longest time, and I've shown you some of my essays, including those which I wrote 50 years ago when I was in high school. You've seen.
Yes.
And you've seen I was always a grade A student in
Very
history.
bright.
Up to now.
Yeah.
And the papers are there, which were marked by very brilliant teachers. On a more serious note, I am privileged to be a student of revolutions in world history. American Revolution, French Revolution, the San Domingo Revolution in Haiti, the Mexican Revolution, the Iranian Revolution, the Filipino Revolution, and many other revolutions throughout world history. The 1848 revolutions in Europe that took place between the year 1848 and 1852. We are in the middle of a revolution in this country. In one of the interviews that we did with you, I told you that between Odinga and Ruto, it would not matter who won if they did not take care of certain things. The country would experience a revolution. Now, as I sit here before you, I can tell you that there is a revolution in progress. And President William Ruto will go to public gatherings such as he did yesterday and said, munaweza kusema Ruto must go. Walisema sijui nani must go. Nani must go. That is what Nicolae Ceausescu of Romania used to say. He didn't know what hit him. The dictators don't know what is going to hit them. We say here in Emanyudia that the young boy The uncircumcised young boy laughs at the knife because he doesn't know what it's going to do to him until when it has cut through him.
Just what you're saying, are you by any chance referring to President William Ruto as a dictator?
What do you call these disappearances of young people? What do you call these body bags that have been appearing in quarries? What do you call this tear gassing of people in the streets? What do you call this thing that we are hearing about from his own cabinet? People coming out and talking about monologues, that when he calls for a cabinet meeting, that it's a monologue, and that he's surrounded by individuals who are tributating their interpretation. They panic, they shake like leaves. What do you call that? Is it not dictatorship? What do you call it when an individual is being invited to a conversation to correct himself? He says, you can call me Kasongo as much as you want. He even sings the Kasongo song as his New Year's anthem to tell the nation that it doesn't matter. Now, this is an individual who is in office by dint of democratic processes, but he casts the whole thing away. What do you call an individual who tells the nation that the sword of the commander-in-chief that has been bequeathed to me is not for cutting vegetables? You know, Violet, we speak with the full knowledge that President Ruto can decide to use ultra vires powers to deal with us, and which is quite fine, because at this age, there's nothing left for me to do except to speak for this country until the day I drop dead, and somebody else will pick up the script from me and carry on with it. I was a young man of age 17 in 1975 when they assassinated Karaoke. And that story, that happening, was our fancy completely.
Mhm.
We kept hearing the people in political leadership in the third parliament at that time, led by Chairman Elijah Mwangari from Bungoma East. There are other people like Mzee Burudi Nabwera today, Martin Shikuku, Mark Muithaga, Dr. Julia Ujambo, and others. We kept hearing them saying they can kill JM, but they cannot kill his spirit. The spirit of JM Karaoke speaks through me today, 50 years later. The spirit of JM Karaoke will speak through my grandchildren 50 years from now, and through my great-grandchildren 100 years from now. There will always be other Kasim Mwamzandis, other Eunice Alice, other Chief Getongas, Mwangi Karungaru, whom you don't see, whom other people have not heard of, Charles Rubia, in subsequent years, Ken Matiba. You can capture those individuals, incarcerate them, destroy their physical bodies, but the spirit will live on. So, to answer your question forthright, William Ruto is a dictator, and his path is the path that has been walked by all other dictators before him. His reward in the end is going to be the reward that has befallen all other dictators before him. Idi Amin Dada was a dictator next door when I was a young man in high school and in higher school. We know where he ended up. Messias Nguema belonged to the dictators club of that time, as did Mobutu Sese Seko and Jean Bidel Bokassa. They have been there, but we know what befell them. I would advise President William Ruto, I would tell him, you are a young man, and I can refer to him as a young man because he's my younger brother, about 7, 8 years, my younger brother. I would advise him. I would tell him, Mr. President, make hay while the sun shines. Reform, recant, get out of that road. Come back to the road that you and I and others were telling Kenyans in the year 2022. You are lost. And it doesn't matter that you are surrounded by so many people who tell you the things you want to hear. King Nicholas II of Russia in 1917 was listening to Rasputin the monk and to other people like him who told him what he wanted to hear. Idi Amin was surrounded by people like Malia Mungu and Bob Assols, and they told him the things he wanted to hear. Mobutu Sese Seko was surrounded by people like Sotsi Mobutu and others who told him what he wanted to hear. And the examples are numerous in history. Some of them have advisors who are even within the domestic circles, like Marie Antoinette was advising Louis XVI and telling him that if those people out there don't have bread to eat, must they protest in the streets? Why can't they eat cake? The end result is the same. That Madame Ceausescu used to call the people of Romania worms. Minyoo. Hawa minyoo wanataka nini? Until the day the shoe was flung at her husband when he was attending a public event, and it marked the beginning of the end. Like Wakajakoya told them, power is transient, it's temporary. Forget about it. Forget about amassing wealth, Mr. President. It will not take you anywhere. Mobutu's palace in Badolite, in northern DRC, is now a portrait of ruins. Come back to the path, restore faith, try to lead the country to the correct destination on the right path. You might just survive the revolution that is taking place in the country.
I mean, when you hear Ruto must go, the voices that are echoing all the time. Yeah. So, do you, from where you sit, do you think that he might be, or he will be a one-term president?
In a free and fair election, the trends and the path taken, the indicators are that Ruto will go. And Ruto, and listen to this carefully, Ruto could still go before 2027. 27. Constitutionally.
So what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that we have had people coming from his cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
They are now outside cabinet. We have had them saying that he's a double personality. Nobody has come out, government, to address that issue. When they say you are a double personality, they say basically that you have got a serious psychological condition. They are saying that you have a dissociative disorder, and that there could be 2 or 3 different persons, or even more,
In one.
in one. That this identity disorder that you have makes you unfit for office. And remember, one of the people who have said this is a very learned lawyer, a former attorney general, who was appointed by Dr. Ruto himself. Nothing stops this country from invoking Article 144 of the Constitution on removal of president on the basis of mental inability to lead. It requires only a quarter of the 290 members of parliament to move that motion. A quarter. A quarter of 290. My mathematics, 75.
But don't you think that is just an accusation?
73. It doesn't matter. It can be tested.
But okay, we need a doctor to do that.
I'm not. Now, you better listen, because I'm now telling you how it happens. Yeah? Yes, you need a doctor. And the process is there in the Constitution. Read your Article 143, 44. It says 1/4 of 290, because it's 1/4 of the National Assembly. And you need 1 MP supported by a quarter. That is 73 members. If they move that motion and it's discussed, because it then has to be discussed on the floor of the National Assembly, it then needs a simple majority. And if that simple majority, which would be about 146, if they say, yes, we think this person needs to be investigated, then that is the point at which the doctor that you are talking about will come into the picture. And that doctor comes into the picture because the Speaker of the National Assembly has got to inform the Chief Justice that this person here needs a tribunal to find out whether he's mentally astute to lead this country. I do not want to say anything about the state of affairs between the executive and the judiciary, but I want to just stick to the law. And the law says that within 2 days, the Chief Justice must appoint a tribunal, and that tribunal will have 3 doctors, not 1, as you suggest. There will be 3. And those 3 will be appointed by the Chief Justice together with the Kenya Medical Association. They'll get their 3 people who must find out whether this person's state of mind is right or wrong. Then there's the Law Society of Kenya, which will appoint a 4th person to the tribunal. And finally, there's a fifth person who is appointed by the president himself or by the president's family. Article 144.10 says that the decision or the findings of the tribunal are final and there will be no appeal. If he is lucky, the tribunal might come back and say, no. These are just Muturi's own moonshine notions, and he will continue to be president. If they find that he's not mentally suitable, then of course the National Assembly will be given the final chance to have the last word, and it requires once again just a simple majority, not the two-thirds things that the impeachment, removal by impeachment in Article 145 talks about. So the president is sitting in a very precarious place, and he needs to remember that now he has alienated himself from very many people. There are members of parliament who think they need to redeem themselves, some who have stood with him, and they have bitten the political bullet. Many can hardly go back to their constituencies and stand up to speak. He saw the other day when he visited the Mount Kenya region how they were shouted down. And these are people who are looking for any opportunity to redeem themselves. If they got an opportunity that someone was saying we need 75 signatures to find out through a tribunal whether this person is good to lead or not, they will jump at it. And if it comes to being among the 146, we'll say Akwende. These things of must go are not a joke. Dr. Ruto had better take them seriously, and if he's not taking them seriously, those people around him who love him should tell him that this is not a joke. You better take it seriously. You have not been appointed the chairman of your local village deep. You are the head of state, and the ship of state is in the doldrums. We are headed towards the Bermuda Triangle, and the state might be swallowed up by the currents in the triangle. So he had better do something about it.
But somebody will say probably you're saying this because you're affiliated to some political parties. You are the Secretary General of DNA. Initially it was USP. I don't know why you changed the name, but anyway, somebody will say probably this is, you're saying this because you're not kwa mrengo mmoja.
They would be within the democratic space.
You are the Secretary General, right?
Yes. But they would be within their democratic space to make that kind of assertion. But that would not necessarily negate what the law says and what could happen. It doesn't matter. And I have not said that William Ruto is not mentally suitable to lead the country. The person who has said that is a person who has been very closely affiliated with him, now that we are talking of affiliations. His own first Attorney General, an Attorney General who understands the implications of saying that somebody is a split personality, such as Mr. Justin Bidan Njoka Muturi said a few days ago. and who understands what needs to be done when somebody whom the law considers a double personality is occupying the office of head of state. And remember that this former Attorney General has said categorically, I think William Ruto is unsuitable to be president of this country. So this has nothing to do with my affiliation. I'm openly and proudly the Secretary General of the Democratic National Alliance, DNA, which hopefully will have the opportunity to change the political DNA of this country. But even if it doesn't, we will be happy and proud that we tried. We don't want to be the people whose grandchildren will be asking Achiguka, when all these things were happening, where were you? Where were you as our country sank? You see, Vio, when good people do nothing about the political leadership of their spaces, bad people have every opportunity to overrun the place with the wildest of their vileness. And the tragedy with Kenya, other parts of Africa, is that some people, and many people, and perhaps a majority of the people, imagine that that is space that is the exclusive preserve of certain individuals, and that we don't have a role to play. And they usually imagine that it's the preserve of particularly the worst individuals in our midst. And because people believe and behave that way, we end up with kakistocracies. A kakistocracy is a government that is led by the worst elements in the citizenry. And kakistocracies evolve out of political apathy by other people. You come up with the DNA, they say, at Barack na yeye at sasa, at nao at sasa wameform chama. Ati hao watawezana na pesa za Ruto kweli? Ati hao sasa, ati wawezi kuona hata ma-DVD alisurrender, amevunja chama. Ati hao wanakuja at sasa wako na chama. That kind of self-defeatism is what gives way to kakistocracies. When the government in New Zealand was beginning to exhibit kakistocratic tendencies in the 1980s, there was a certain David Lange. We used to call him here David Lange because we didn't know Lange was Lange. David Lange was speaking against this government, and the people, citizens, honest citizens, say to David Lange, wait a minute, you have talked enough about these things. We now want to elect you. And David Lange said, no, I didn't say these things because I intended to be the prime minister or anything like that. No, this is just, but they insisted. And David Lange became the head of state and government in New Zealand and restored the country to its initial values. Here in Kenya, and I'm not saying I'm that person, I've told you that I expect to help to propel the right person to power. In the past, as you have talked about affiliations, I unfortunately helped to propel the wrong person to power, to office. And now I have the responsibility of helping the country to propel that wrong person out of power. Will I succeed? Maybe, maybe not. It's about kissing frogs in search of a royal prince. And sometimes we have to kiss so many frogs before we kiss the right one, but we should never surrender.
Actually, that was my second question, because you are one of the people who really were on the forefront supporting the current regime. What made you, take that U-turn?
You are dead wrong. I was never at the forefront supporting the current regime. I supported the William Ruto candidature. That is different from the William Ruto regime. God supported the birth or the creation of Adam, of the Garden of Eden. God supported and facilitated the creation of the mother of humankind in Christendom called Eve, and even the serpent in the Garden of Eden. But God, having created these things, never supported the fall that they took humankind to. You can create an entity, and when it behaves in a certain manner, you must be bold enough to say, this is not what I intended. That in the Frankenstein story, Frankenstein, who is actually the scientist, creates a being which becomes a monster, and the monster starts running even after Frankenstein himself. It is a waste of time and an exercise in futility to say, but you created this creature. In fact, when you go back to the Genesis story, there's a lot of back passing. Adam, what have you done? Oh, it's this woman whom you gave me. The woman says, oh, it is this serpent which you created. Some might even say, oh, you're the one who created that tree whose fruit we ate. That is an exercise in back passing. We keep on trying. And when we fail, we must accept that we failed, that we dialed the wrong number, we touched the wrong button. If I field a team, and I have fielded football teams here in Huisero many times in the past, I've sponsored football. But we're in a situation where the team that we have fielded is not doing the right thing. The captain is actually the culprit, and everybody around him is pretending that he's not the culprit. He's even raiding the opponent team players who are supposed to be expert players and distorting the whole arrangement on the field. The Man U is raiding Arsenal, saying we need an expert.
We need experts from your field or your
team to be now the goalkeeper, or to be. Aren't lost direction, aren't nonsense. We must accept we dialed the wrong number.
Regardless. So you dialed the wrong number by supporting Ruto's candidate, as you say. What really happened that you decided, like, as much as we supported this guy in 2022, we feel like things are not working? But also, too, as you answer that, who might be his biggest challenger then?
I'll start by answering your second question. Just now, it's not important to say who is going to be the president. Just now, what is important is to say who must not be the president. And once we are collectively agreed on who we don't want, we will agree on who we want. So the second bridge is a bridge we are going to cross, but we know who we do not want, regardless that we supported him or we did not support him. Why did we support William Ruto? We had a clear plan. It was in fact called the plan. And I want to believe that as I see them saying in social media, you have just asked on behalf of somebody else. Nimemuulizia tu rafiki. Political competitions are competitions of ideas. And we had ideas. In fact, if you were to put it correctly, I was not William Ruto's follower. William Ruto was my follower. Because I'm the thinker. I was the thinker. I was the philosopher. I was the ideologue. I was the owner of the model, the bottom-up agenda. A model which you would say that some of us academicians are romantic idealists, that we romanticize certain models of development, of social architecture design, and interaction among peoples, a certain social outlook. And the bottom-up model is a model that started becoming especially popular and in vogue in the 1960s when development communications became very critical in mass media studies for me. For other people, it would be in the economics model because there had always been what was called the dominant paradigm. The dominant paradigm that derives from the thinking of people like Adam Smith, the father of capitalism as we have known it through the decades, the free market economy, the top-down model of development that believes that development programs should focus on a few spaces and on a few individuals who have exhibited the ability to embrace development and that everybody else can pick up from them. That if, for example, there's an innovation, that innovation should be taken, say in agriculture, to wealthy farmers in that environment. And it would be hoped that in the fullness of time, there will be adaptation from the rest of the population. Hence, they spoke about diffusion of innovations, where you would have the innovators. Then after the innovators, you have the early adapters. After the early adapters, you have the later adapters. And after the later adapters, you have got the laggards. And the laggards are people who essentially don't understand what is happening and they're not even interested. And those are the poor people in society. And they are poor because according to that model, they are anti-development. That when you see poor people, you should know that they are poor because they are hostile to development. But we were saying here with people like Everett Rogers, people like Will Bashram, people like Daniel Lena, people like Michael Shoemaker, people like Paulo Freire of the pedagogy of the oppressed, that wait a minute, you are blaming the victim. You're blaming the poor person, saying that he's poor, she's poor, because they are anti-development. No. If we get into a context where we plan with them and we implement with them, they are going to rise. We can all rise from the bottom up. And that was the message which we armed William Ruto with. And there was a blending of thinking from the academy with his own street experience as hustler, where we said the hustler is anyone and everyone who tries. If you leave university and because you can't get a job in the corporate sector, in government, you start a little workshop. Maybe you are a qualified, a graduate in electrical engineering, and you open a little consultancy of your own. There's a sense in which you are hustling. Mm-hmm. If you are a graduate from the School of Law, we are not able to employ you in the judiciary. We are not able to absorb you in the existing legal practice environments. You find a little door somewhere in Kakamega and you write there, Violet and Company legal practice. You start from there. You are, in a sense, a hustler. You are hustling. And if you call yourself a communications consultant like myself, and you have just you and maybe one or two, you are hustling. We are starting these things from down, taking them up. Hence the notion of macro, micro, and medium enterprises, which was what we believed in. And we equipped William Ruto with it. So, what went wrong? He set up the Hustler Fund. Where is it? Where is it today? Where is the cooperative movement today? If you come here in Kakamega, where he said he was going to build roads, he promised us 1,000 bitumen in 5 years. We are now in the 3rd year. Where is the first 1 kilometer that he has done? He promised to bring here a factory that was going to process vegetables, fruits, and I don't know, where have they started that construction? When he has come here in the recent past, has it been to inspect the 1,000 kilometers of bitumen? 1,000 kilometers is from Busia to Mombasa and back to Mazeras. That is 1,000 kilometers. How many of those have we seen? The things he promised in the housing, which has been hijacked. It has become a conduit for self-enrichment. We don't know who the contractors are. We don't know who the suppliers are. And we are not supposed to know. If you go to health, where we were supposed to have a health protection entity that would be superior to NHIF, everybody knows that it has flopped. Should I join the army of praise singers around President William Ruto and use the gift of eloquence that God has given me to cheat Kenyans that it is working? What will my grandchildren say in the future when they see footage of myself praising something that was dead? No, I'll come here and say he has failed. And to tell me that you supported him is to waste your energy. You should spare that breath to cool your porridge.
Okay. Thank you so much. When you're talking about you don't want to join the praise and worship, one of the people that actually has been, talked about being a praise and worship is Musalia Mudavadi. And currently, some of the leaders are actually pointing DNA as a project of Musalia Mudavadi.
DNA has nothing to do with Musalia Mudavadi, and Musalia Mudavadi has nothing to do with DNA. If the people who are talking about innovators, early adapters, late adapters, and laggards, Mudavadi is a laggard. He should have bolted out of this government a long time ago and told Kenyans the things that I'm saying today, that this government is a wrong formula. We used the wrong formula. We dialed the wrong number, and that we will have another go at it. So he is a laggard. Wherever he is, whatever tribulations he's having with his friend William Ruto, is on itabuzao.
Yeah, thank you so much. But also yesterday, whatever played out in the funeral in Nyanza, people, actually the president praised William Raila Odinga, sorry, as a person who actually stood by him, and Ruto the other way around. He was there for Raila during the ODM party formation and all that. But again, a lot of people have also called him as a catalyst. He blows, if he wants the temperatures in the country to be cold, to be lower, or to be higher, he is a catalyst. What is your take on that?
Who is the catalyst?
Raila Odinga.
Raila Odinga is a self-seeking individual who knows how to camouflage as a people's man, a man of the people. He always knows that it is about him. And he has got this fanatic following in certain parts of the country that he uses as his cannon fodder. When he has got what he wants, the guns fall silent. This mutual self-praise between him and William Ruto is because they are joined in a broad-based conspiracy against the country, against the people, so that Mr. Odinga turns a blind eye to their goings on. When did they suddenly wake up to discover the virtues in one another? And if they have woken up to find the virtues in one another, don't they owe the country a recanting exercise? Don't they need to tell us, like Paul of Tarsus, that I was on this road going to Damascus to prosecute the people? Then I saw the light. Much the same way I say here repeatedly and elsewhere that we were on this road with William Ruto and we thought we were going to Damascus for the right reasons. When the scales fell off our eyes and we saw that this was a lost individual taking us to the wrong destination. So at what point did Mr. Odinga and President Ruto discover they called each other very nasty names? We people in communications around William Ruto had to keep telling him to moderate the pejorative verbiage, the invective. It was not necessary, and to come back and focus on the message. So at what point in history and what specific happenings generated the brain waves in both heads that then got both heads to suddenly realize that this is a patriot, that this is a great leader? And all these leaders, and I'll not be afraid or shy, Vala, to say all these Luo politicians who behave like a flag that is blown in whichever direction Raila Odinga wants that flag to be blown and to go. These wind vents, these political wind vents from Luo land, they are part of our problem. And it's because they are self-seeking wind vents.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the wind van that we call Opio Wandai? To the wind van that we call Junaid Mohammed? To the wind van that we call John Mbadi? What happened to them? That is the heavy question that Edwin Sifuna is wrestling with. That you just follow any wind, any path, any wave of air that comes from Mr. Odinga. That is part of the problem. And a massive captive Luo population that just follows. That is a fundamental part of the population. And it doesn't matter if I should materialize at the city stadium and they send the gauchos of this world to try to bully me. I will not cower because the country is bigger, it is greater, and we must speak for it.
Mm-hmm.
And Raila Odinga is part of the problem. And some of us would want to wish him long health, long life with good health, but he needs to be obliterated from the Kenyan political landscape. He's a thorn in the national flesh.
Mm-hmm. Talking about Raila Odinga, do you identify him as at now as an opposition leader or a person who
He's
is
in government. He can pretend not to be in government. He has appointed people into the cabinet. He has appointed principal secretaries, ambassadors. He is in government. Why he wants to pretend that he's not in government and he's in government is something that beats logic. He should decide that he crossed the Rubicon, that his die was cast.
Mm-hmm.
When he made the first appointments and that it was sealed. The fate was sealed the day that they materialized out of Kenyatta International Convention Center
Mm-hmm.
and inked a memorandum of agreement so that the opposition space can breathe
Mm-hmm.
and define its own destiny.
So is it right, if at all you're saying that he is in government, is it right for him to continue holding the minority positions in parliament, being on the same side with the ruling party?
Of course not. He should not be having that leadership. But the reasons are simple and straightforward. The political parties fund the
Mm-hmm.
benefits that go with the holding of minority offices.
Mm-hmm.
It's eating from both sides of the mouth. And that should tell you who the person is. I don't understand this obsession.
But we have the laws in this country. Why is it like nothing has been done? You've not seen any case in court in that regard.
Do laws matter in this country? The only thing that matters in this country is impunity. And the impunity is born out of the fact that political leaders, and you can talk about ethnicity, label me, call me a tribalist. If you say something about William Ruto, and you're going to see once you place this footage into the public space, you're going to see the response from the Luo community. You are going to see the response from the Kalenjin community. They do not understand that they are captives and hostages like the rest of us. When a person is a thief, is a thief. It doesn't matter that that thief is from your tribe or is your brother. Our tragedy is that captives, slaves, look at their chains and they think that those chains are jewelry. And so they praise the slave masters who have put them in those chains. When you want to remove them from those chains, they think that you are a jealous person who wants to take away their jewelry.
Okay. So I want to know, Gachagua is planning to launch a new party. What is your take on that? Do you think that is going to bring some sort of change, especially with the Mount Kenya? And maybe when you answer that, does President Ruto believe that probably? Or do you think that he might get some votes from Mlima?
Some votes he will certainly get everywhere. There are always those votes that people get. I do not know about the party that Mr. Gachagua plans to launch. I'll wait and see after it has been launched. One thing still troubles me about Mr. Gachagua. Even when he seems to be on the correct path and is saying the right things, and I recognize that from some of my pronouncements, you can accuse me of the same. It doesn't matter really, but I have to say this. Mr. Gachagua is beholden to the mountain to a fault. He needs to come out and speak for the country. It cannot always be my people, Murima, Murima. No. The notion of our people has got to change to become like-minded persons or populations. Because this thing of Ruto and his community, and my community, it entrenches the chains that I talk about. That at some point, as you speak of these things, people must stop to wonder and say, but where am I in this whole picture that Mr. Gachagua is painting? The friends he has, those who are close to him, should tell him that it's fine, have a home base. All of us must have a home base. I expect that DNA is going to catch on in Western among the Abaluya people. But if it doesn't, their children and children's children will ask them in the future that when Barrack came here and told you that you go to bargain with the people there, also when you are coming from somewhere, it's not something we should be ashamed of or shy about or afraid of.
Sure.
But Gachagua is on the other extreme. When does he think like a Kenyan? When?
But do you think it's genuine?
Genuine in what?
Gachagua, Muturi, I mean, they were in the government. They were not saying nothing. They were mum. In fact, a lot of things that were being raised, they were so quiet. But currently, right now, after they were, they came out of the government, it's like now they want to say whatever they want to say.
Vio, I'll say two things about that. It's a chicken and egg situation. Are they saying these things because they are out of government? Or are they out of government because of these things that they are saying? About timing, it is an illusion, almost like a mirage, and an irrelevant one for that matter, to ask them, why weren't you saying these things?
When you are in.
When you are in. First, I would expect that being members of that cabinet, they would take time to accumulate the facts, to accumulate the evidence, that they would not on day one just come out and say, hey, wait,
Start questioning.
Ruto is corrupt. Oh, wait, Ruto is not fit to lead. They must build a body of experience, a body of information, a body of evidence, a body of what you can call a record that you can come out and speak of. I would look at it that way. And more fundamentally, I would concern myself with the veracity of what they are saying, rather than why didn't you start saying early. Goodness, they have been saying things, and they're things which we need to reflect about as Kenyans, because these things affect us. Cannot start now wrong footing them and saying, oh, ati ulikuwa uko ndani,
haukuwa unasema,
mbona ukusema. Huo ni upuzi mtupu. Kitu kilicho muhimu cha msingi ni kuuliza kwamba haya mambo wanayazungumzia, haya matamshi yao ni ya kuaminika, ni ya kweli kweli, hivi ndivyo mambo yalivyo mle ndani au namna gani? Akitoka Kobe baharini aje atuambie kwamba mamba ni mgonjwa, kuna kila sababu ya kuamini, kwa sababu wamekuwa wakiishi kule pamoja.
Kauli yako ni ipi kuhusu Matiang'i? Kwa sababu wamekuwa wakimwimba mtandaoni, wanasema kwamba anakuja kusimama for president. What do you think about him? Can he make a good president?
Sija tafakari kwa kina. Itabidi ni tafakari kwa undani. Yuko na udhaifu wake mwingine mkubwa tu. Kuna vitu ambavyo vilitendeka wakati wa himaya yake katika wadhifa wa waziri wa usalama na utawala na majukumu mengineo husika. Ni vitu ambavyo lazima vifikiriwe na vitathminiwe kwa undani. Naye mwenyewe pia apewe nafasi ajieleze, tusije tukamhukumu tu bila ya kumpa nafasi ya kuweza kujieleza. Kila mmoja wetu ana mizigo ambayo ataibeba yeye mwenyewe na ajieleze siku ya kiyama inapofika.
Asante, itakuwa ni vibaya sana sisi kumaliza hii interview kabla tujazungumzia mambo ya hapa Kakamega County.
Watu ambao wameajiriwa katika county ni wengi kupita kiasi. Gavana anakuja anapata tayari kuna watu ambao waliajiriwa kwa misingi ya kisiasa, kufuatana na sheria na vile kanuni za kufanya kazi mtumishi katika huo umma. Huwezi kuwatoa, ni lazima waendelee kuwa hapo. Wale ulipata huko, nawe pia unakuja na wako unaongezea, kwa sababu wamekupa kura na unatafuta kura. Utaomba tena kura. Kuna mlimbikizo wa ajabu. Na kwa hivyo vitu ambavyo vinaendelea katika kaunti ya Kakamega na vile katika kaunti nyinginezo nchini ni siasa tu na fitina. Fitina, ingia mule ndani, umesikia. Sasa huyu, sasa huyu na yule, sasa umbea. Ndicho kitu kinachoendelea, na kuhudhuria matanga.
Ebu kinyang'anyiro kwa wewe, kauli yako ni vyema, unaona kinyang'anyiro kikoje na unafikiria ni nani atachukua ugavana?
Sijawaona bado. Kitu ninachojua ni kwamba nikilinganisha huu mhula wa rafiki yangu Fernandez Baraza na muhula wa rafiki yangu na ndugu yangu Wycliffe Oparanya, kuna tofauti kubwa sana, ni kama usiku na mchana, kwa sababu vitu ambavyo alikuwa akivifanya Oparanya vilikuwa vinaonekana tu kwa macho, na sasa hatuvioni. Hata barabara ambazo alizijenga akaziweka lami zimeanza kuchipuka, hakuna marekebisho. Nimekuwa naangalia barabara humu ndani nikizunguka, nasema na hapa hivi si wangezuia kabla hapajapasuka kwenda mbali zaidi? Si wangetibu marekebisho makubwa ya hapo baadaye? Hata hivyo tu vidogo vya huo ukarabati sivioni. Maji yaliletwa nyakati hizo, siku hizi hata hayo maji wakati mwingi yamepotea. Umeme ulikuwa umeanza kuenezwa katika sehemu mbalimbali za humo vijijini. Tulikuwa tunaanza kujivuna kama tunaishi mijini sasa tukiwa vijijini. Tunaona hivyo vyote, hayo matumaini yanaanza kutokomea. Naviona pia kwingineko Nairobi, naona kila mahali
mambo yamebadilika.
Mambo ni vivyo tu. Tulikuwa tumefikiri kwamba tulipata Kidero akashindwa, tukampata huyo mwingine, sijui alikuwa anaitwa nani, Mike Songo, mpaka akatimuliwa. Tumekuja tumepata sasa mwingine, hata sijui jina lake. Gavana wa Nairobi mimi sijui jina lake.
Oh my God.
Na huyo ndio bure sana. Wale watakaompata wamwambie kuna bwana huko
umjui Sakaja.
Anishasikia jina kama hilo.
Okay.
Sakaja anaitwa Johnson Sakaja. Huyo alikuwa senator or something like that. Absolutely useless, completely useless. I grew up in the city of Nairobi. Nilizaliwa Nairobi, nikalelewa Nairobi, nikaenda shule ya msingi Nairobi, nikaanzia shule ya upili Nairobi, nikarudi kwenye chuo kikuu Nairobi, nikaajiriwa Nairobi. This is the worst Nairobi has ever been under one Arthur Johnston. Umesema anaitwa Sakaja. Completely useless. Huko kwetu Jericho tulikuwa tuletewa majaa ya kuweka takataka. Huko kwetu Jericho nyumba za city council zilikuwa zinapigwa rangi mara moja kila mwaka, nje na ndani. Huko kwetu Nairobi ua ulikuwa ni kama huu unauona hapa hivi. Usifikiri huu ua nimeamka tu na kuweka namna hii. Ni kumbukumbu za kutoka kule Nairobi nilikolelewa. Huko Nairobi tulikuwa tupata maji ya mfereji, maji ya tapu. Ukifungua namna hii unaweka hapo mikono, unaitumia kama kikombe, na kisha yanakuja na ile dawa unaiona imewekwa, nitibiwa. Kulikuwa watu wakuja kuua kunguni na mende mara 2 kwa mwaka. Katika kila mtaa mnatoa vyombo kwa nyumba, dawa inapulizwa mle huko Nairobi kulikuwa watu wanaitwa Kamdoya. Kamdoya wanakuja wanaokota takataka. Ua ulikuwa msafi kama huu unaoona hapa.
So ina maana kuwa Nairobi imechafuka.
Nairobi imekuwa ni useless, imeporomoka, imedidimia, imedorora. Huko Nairobi tulikuwa tuletewa vyakula bila watu kujipigia madebe katika shule ya msingi. Lunch, packed lunch, hot lunch, burger. We used to call it supro. Na hiyo supro ilikuwa nutritious. Hizi vitu Arthur, jameni,
tumemwona anatembea, amekuwa akisukumia hilo swala la Luhya Unity. Sijui kama kauli yako ni ipi haswa ama hisia zako zipi kuhusu Natembea, but pia ukijibu hilo, Salasia ameanzisha vuguvugu la vijana hapa, Western Youth Movement, ambayo wanataka kuwaleta vijana pamoja kuzungumza katika sauti moja.
Hiyo vitu wanavyofanya ni vitu vizuri, but they have to walk the talk. Natembea anatembea vizuri na injili nzuri na kuzungumzia juu ya umoja wa Luhya huko. La kunisikitisha kiasi kidogo ni kwamba sijawahi kumuona na viongozi wengine. So how are you going to unite the people when you are not bringing other leaders on board? Mimi kama Barrack nimewahi kumpigia bwana Natembea simu mara kadha wa kadha, hajachukua. I flatter myself with the thought that I have some degree of influence huku Luhya land, if not in the country. Lakini hata kama sina ushawishi in the country or in Luhya land, niko na ushawishi hapa kwetu ya Manyuria. Are we not part of Luhya land?
Yeah.
Are we not supposed to be part of that unity you are looking for? Sasa sisemi hivi kumkejeli, lakini kumsaidia, kujirekebisha kidogo. George Natembea, you are a good man. You're on a good mission. But we will have to work together. Nikikupigia simu, if you're not able to pick, call back. Text back. Hata tulipozindua DNA nilimwalika. Kwa mara ya kwanza akatuma text message akasema, thank you bro, I will endeavor. I didn't see him. I have not heard from him saying, my brother, kulikuwa hivi na hivi na vile. So you cannot preach water and drink wine. You preach water and drink water. Otherwise, preach wine and drink wine. Or just drink your wine. He has that challenge. Salasia is also on a good mission. But once again, he will have to work with other people. Hata mimi, as Barrack nikiwa SG wa DNA, I will have to work with other people. I will have to look for Natembea. I will have to look for Salasia. I will have to look for Mahisa Kitui. I will have to look for David Eseli Simiyu. I will have to look for Eugene Wamalwa. Tufanye na wao kazi. Otherwise, I'm also daydreaming. I may or may not look for Moses Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi because our ideological orientation is now completely different. Mudavadi na Weta ni watu ambao wakishiba hawasumbui. Wakishapata chao kimeingia katika matumbo yao wanatosheka. Huyu Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi na Moses Wetangula wanatutreat ni kama sisi ni mashabiki wao wa football, ati wao ni Arsenal na Man U, that wakishafika huko wakifunga bao wamepata, sisi turidhike. Hapana, to celebrate, that we should celebrate, ati tumepata bao, ati ma DVD sasa ni prime cabinet, ati Wetani ni speaker, hapana. Wacha hiyo upuzi. What is...
But isn't that also what is happening with Raila Odinga? Akiwa mahali people celebrate.
Wajaluo wanapata-pata.
Wanapata-pata.
Sio kama huku. Na yeye huku anatutumia kama ngazi ya kupanda kule anakotaka kwenda. Shafika basi.
So is it by the last time I had an interview with you talked about udongo ama sijui ulisema ya kwamba Western imeteleza kwa Raila Odinga, and now hata saizi watu UDA imeteleza.
And it's shifting, and that shift is ongoing. He can come. Kwanza UDA wao wakija, that one even President William Ruto knows. He knows in his heart of hearts. President William Ruto knows kwamba umaarufu wake umeenda kule, anaenda hata akija huku anakomboa watu.
So is that the reason is being accused of paying people to attend his rally?
I don't know whether we should accuse him. If that is the mtindo he wants, it is okay. Alipe watu kisha pia unajua watu sana hawana ajira. So if you're going to give them that labor ya kuja hapo kwako kupigia makofi, ni sawa. Na uliona Mount Kenya walisema kwamba William Ruto alitulipa pesa za kuja kumsikiliza. Pesa zile alitulipa zilikuwa za kumsikiliza yeye na kumpigia makofi. Lakini wale wajumbe aliokuja na wao hawakutupatia pesa za pia wao wazungumze. Ndio uliona watu wakikataa, wakijaribu kuzungumza, naambiwa hapana, zile tumepewa ni za rais peke yake, zenu hatujapewa. So he knows kwamba umashauri wake huku, umaarufu wake huku umeenda. Umaarufu wake mlimani umeenda. Umaarufu wa Raila Odinga hapa kwetu, certainly hapa kwetu Emanyudia, na akitaka kuja atakuja na Uparanya. Uparanya is a neighbor hapa hivi across, it's 5 minutes. Atakuja na wengine watakuja tu, people will go there. But maarufu umeisha. Umaarufu, how do you know umeisha? Umaarufu umeisha wakati ninatembea humu ndani, na mimi hutembea humu sana for my own physical fitness. You hear what the people are saying. Nikienda kunyolewa kwa kinyozi hapa hivi, nanyolewa na kwa saying. Naenda hapo kuchona viatu, hear what people are saying. Or sometimes, because this Emanyudia here is my home, I can also just go and sit kwa bench hapo kwa maduka na watu hapo tunakunywa soda. Nasikiliza tu, I don't even lead the discussion. I just hear what the people are saying. Na huko Nairobi nikitembea, I also walk a lot for physical fitness. Jioni naona watu wametoka kwa vibarua, mjengo, what not, wanatembea wanarudi Kangemi. I walk with them and they walk very fast. That's why I like walking with them. Nasikia what they are saying. I just listen to what they are saying. Nasikia tu vile watu wanasema.
Na ground inasema.
That's what the ground is saying. Napita hapo hivyo. Unaona hawa watchmen humu siku hizi tunawaita soja. Unaona wamesimama hapo hivyo. And they are learned guys. Wengine wako na shahada za degree, diploma. You just hear what they are saying. Fika hapo kwa mjengo, you hear what the people are saying. The people are saying kwamba Raila Odinga, this is the biggest mistake you have made. Na si Barrack anasema. Unaweza kunichukia nimesema hivyo. Ni ground inasema. Unasikia tu watu wanasema hii Ruto na Odinga wanadanganyana, hakuna kule wanaenda. Tutawabeba wote, tutawatupa kwa Indian Ocean. That is what the people are saying. Not Barrack Muluka. You go to Mumias here, unasikia watu wanasema tu hapa. hapa Mumias. Watu wanasema hayo mambo. Ilureko. Unaenda Kakamega, unasikia tu vijana wanasema. So, Mr. President, I tell you, go back to State House. Wacha hizi mambo unatangatanga, zitakusaidia. Na hii vitu mnadanganyana na Odinga at a broad-based conspiracy. Hakuna mahali zinaenda.
What is your take on the government issue right now that they are taking our young people outside to work?
Defeat, surrender, failure. We need to generate wealth here, to create employment here, not to send our children into exile as casual laborers.
Angalia pale kwa kamera, one message to the Kenyans as we call it a day.
Sasa unajua Kenyans, ningependa hasa kuzungumza na young people, na mimi sasa nazungumza kama Secretary General wa DNA, ambapo nilisikia wakisema they were leaderless, they were partyless, there's a party. Hii party ndio ya watu wale wako young. Mimi mwenyewe kufuatana na miaka yangu ya kuzaliwa, I'm not young anymore. I'm an elder. Hapa ndio kwangu. Hapa kuna wajukuu. Na mimi as an elder, na elders wenzangu wale tuko nao, tunataka tuwapatie nafasi ya organized leadership. Hiyo leadership mnataka, it's going to be taken through a political party. Na chama chenu kitakuwa ni chama cha DNA. Kilicho na viongozi kama Barrack, who want to craft this thing for you. Tasimamisha candidate wengi sana vijana. But we will also have a few elders, because the experience and wisdom of age must blend with the verve, energy and vision of youth. Kwa hivyo mwache sasa kusema you are leaderless. Viongozi wenu ni akina sisi. People who are Gen Z in mind and Gen Z at heart. Ingawa wamekula chumvi kiasi kizuri tu kama Barrack. In the process I will also teach you kwamba chumvi huliwa namna gani. Ndio siku moja na wewe utaambiwa umekula chumvi nyingi. Asante.
The same camera please. Kuna mashabiki wa Shahidi TV. Please waambie waendelee kutazama Shahidi.
Na wewe shabiki wa Shahidi TV, usichoke. Endelea kutizama Shahidi TV. Nitarudi hapa tena. Tuendelee na mazungumzo.